This week on X-Trex, Salt Dust, Bloodlust, still better than Morbius.
It's the vampire episode. Welcome to X-Trex, a podcast where we introduce each other to our fandoms one episode at a time. I'm your host, Erin Cline, an X-Files spooky bitch.
And I'm your other host, Stella Cheeks, a slut for Star Trek the original series. Each podcast, we pick 2 episodes that fit a cinematic theme, watch them together, and then record our feelings.
Our theme this week is vampires.
Today we're watching the season 1 classic, Man Trap. So it's not a traditional vampire episode, but it does feature a creature that wants to suck salt out of your body until you die, so I think it counts. It's also the first episode of Star Trek to air on TV. It's quite the first ever episode, too. It's got a tragic romance, good-natured ribbing from the crew, mysterious deaths, a horrific alien, an unanswerable ethical dilemma, and Spock losing his shit to save Kirk. In many ways, it's a quintessential Star Trek episode, if it's still finding its footing. And cherry on top, it's a horn dog bone-centric episode.
And this one's pretty much as over the plate as you could possibly get for an X-Files theme. It is literally about how Mulder accidentally infiltrates a vampire ring because he's super sad about Dana Scully having been abducted by aliens. It's the season 2, episode 3. In this episode, Mulder goes to a nightclub and talks about AIDS and then almost dies because he fucks a vampire's girlfriend. Also, he wears Scully's cross necklace during this episode because he misses her and it's very lovely and I have a lot of feelings about it. Are you ready for digging in there, Mr. Spock?
Yep. Look, this episode and the episodes we watch are what they are.
Yeah. We can only do so much.
Let's get to it.
Ma'am, if I didn't know better, I would swear that you were somebody I left behind on Wrigley's Pleasure Planet. It's funny, you're exactly like a girl that...
Little less mouth, Darnell.
Now for a quick-ish episode summary. Why is it the boring ones always get a huge summary from me?
Because you're just trying to suck everything you can out of it.
Like a salt vampire. Here we go. Bones, Kirk, and one unfortunate crewman beam down to planet M113 to provide supplies and Starfleet mandatory medical exams to Professor Robert Crater and his wife Nancy, Bones' ex-girlfriend. The professor and Nancy are on an archaeological mission and are the only 2 people on an otherwise barren planet. Kirk teases Bones about meeting the one woman who got away, but Bones doesn't rise to the bait, too nervous to see Nancy for the first time in 10 years. They are interrupted by the woman herself who takes Bones' breath away because she looks exactly like the girl he left behind. Like, exactly. But when Kirk looks at her, he just sees Nancy and an appropriately aged woman. Crewman Darnell can't keep his mouth shut and tells everybody that she looks exactly like a girl left on a pleasure planet. Awkward. Bones is like, excuse me? And Kirk, amused, is like, you should wait outside. And also, maybe I'll wait outside so y'all can kiss or whatever. But Nancy, a married woman, thank you, says she'll go find her husband Bob, leaving Kirk and Bones alone. When she leaves the compound, she finds Darnell, and she is once again Darnell's pleasure planet babe. With a smirk and a swivel, he follows her off into the desert like the dog he is. In the meantime, Crater shows up and is a real asshole to Bones, but you can't out-grumble a master, and he relents to being examined. McCoy reveals his name, and Crater is like, oh, Nancy's ex. Interesting. He does seem shocked that they have met her already, and is a little squirrely when Bones mentioned that she looked really young. Like, young. Kirk gently says, respectably, but she has gray hair, bro. And Crater is like, haha, sure, probably it's a trick of love. She'll definitely look older the next time you see her. Their awkward banter is interrupted by a scream from Nancy. Darnell is dead and has funny spots all over his body. Nancy, crying, says he ate the bourgeois plate even though I told him to stop and he died. McCoy isn't really listening, though, because she's old now. Back in the Enterprise, Bones can't figure out what killed this man. Spock says the plant he ingested is similar to the nightshade family, but nowhere do the symptoms say that there should be spots involved. McCoy confirms that in no way is this nightshade poisoning because he would know, damn it, don't tell me my business. But maybe he needs his eyes checked because he swore Nancy was young and then she was old and he is having feelings. But Kirk is like, stop thinking with your glands, bro, and storms off. He does and eventually realizes that crewman Darnell died because his body has been completely depleted of salt. Back on the planet, Kirk is questioning Crater about their constant nagging about salt, to which Crater is like, we're just running low on salt tablets. Nothing strange about that. But when Kirk and Bones look away, Crater books it with a handful of salt pebbles, and runs into the desert screaming, Nancy, Nancy, hey you, look, I got salt, you want some of this? Bones and Kirk run after him and find one of their crewmen dead with the same lesions on his face. Nancy avoids detection, though, because dun dun dun, she takes the shape of another crewman who she also definitely killed. Back on the Enterprise and in the body of crewman Green, Nancy, or whatever she is, stalks around the hallway searching for their next victim. The creature finds Yeoman Rand carrying a food tray and a salt shaker, and decides to follow her into the greenhouse, where it awkwardly interacts with Sulu and Rand. And a hand puppet. But one of Sulu's plants, the hand puppet, screams bloody murder, and the creature runs away. Must be space madness, you know? In the hallway, it shapeshifts into a hot Swahili man to try and seduce Uhura, but is once again foiled. It does manage to suck one crewman to death, however, so all's not lost, and it convinces Bones to take a sleeping pill so it can steal his shape too, because memories are so strong, you see. The creature in the shape of Bones sits in on a bridge meeting where Crater tries to explain that the real Nancy died, but that she wanted him to protect the creature because it was the last of his kind. Kirk is like, okay, but also can you tell me who it is? And Crater is like, yep, but I won't tell you. Then the creature is acting real sus as Bones, but no one notices. Kirk orders Bones to give Crater truth serum, but when he arrives in sickbay, he finds Crater dead, Spock knocked out, got that unsalted green blood, saved his life, and McCoy gone. Back in Nancy's form, the creature tries to elicit help from the real McCoy, who is super confused. Maybe take fewer sleeping pills next time, my dude. Not wanting to hurt Nancy and not wanting to hurt Kirk, McCoy is frozen until Spock comes in and beats the shit out of the creature wearing Nancy's face and skin. That's a weird way to write that. Bones finally believes once the creature takes its true form to suck out all of Kurt's salt, and he finally shoots the creature. In the end, the salt vampire, the last of its kind, goes the way of the buffalo, and everyone is left having a real big feel at the end. Would have been better if they had said whales, but you know, hindsight is 2020. What did you think of this episode?
I think I liked the summary better than the actual episode.
Yeah.
That was a great summary. Good job.
Thank you. I only messed up a little, too.
Yeah, you did great.
I mean, I messed up 0 times.
Yeah, definitely 0 times. Oh, fuck.
Can you believe this was the first ever episode to air of Star Trek?
Yes, yeah. I can, actually. I feel very mixed about this episode. There were things that I liked about it, but it also just felt fucking weird. Like,
we haven't gone back and watched earlier ones recently. So
yeah,
this is kind of like a whiplash.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've seen, like, they're still trying to figure out who these characters are, because, like, Spock is too grumpy. Like, he's so abrupt with Uhura in a way that just doesn't feel natural to his character. Uhura is way too much of a damsel, and like the first interaction that Spock has with her is telling her that she made a mistake, which is like that definitely never happens. Like, Uhura is nothing if not like supremely competent at her job, and so it's so weird to see her immediately presented as, oh, I just got all airy and, you know, didn't want to do my job correctly.
Yeah,
like,
she's
it was
like, if I hear the word frequency one more time, he's like, but you're a communication officer, and she's like, just can you not?
Yeah, like it was bizarre. It was like there's the episode with the creep Charlie X, where
the second episode to premiere.
That's fucking wild.
Well, the ratings dropped considerably for that one, and then popped back up for 3.
That makes a lot of sense, because I was gonna say, like, even in that episode, Uhura is like John with Spock a little bit when she's doing her song, and like that also feels out of place, but less out of place than this that we've just seen. So like, I don't know, there were things about it that I was like, I don't know about all that. And like, Kirk and Bones' relationship is way too formal. I don't like that Bones calls him sir a lot.
Well, to be fair, the one time he does call him sir, Kirk does yell at him, and then Bones is like, oh yeah, shit, I should maybe not be an asshole.
Yeah, it just felt like, I feel like normally Kirk would be more sympathetic to Bones, and even the way that he explains it, like, one of my crewmen is dead and I'm concerned and I really need to know what happened. I feel like normally in like seasons 2 or 3, Kirk would have the empathy for Bones of like, you're clearly experiencing something and something's going on here. Where in this, it's like, get it the fuck together and I need you to like be ready right away, which it feels weird having seen them be more personal with each other and more personable to each other. So it was weird.
It's interesting because you can see the beginnings of things, right? Because like I like the friendship of Uhura and Spock, and especially now that like Strange New Worlds exists. But like this Charlie X to me feels like friendship and good-natured ribbing, and then this one feels like her actually trying to flirt with him and being shut down completely.
Yeah.
And then the relationship with Bones and Kirk, it's weird because there are times when it feels like they have this pre-established relationship. They're friends. He calls him Plum, like making fun of his like pet name. And he does snap at him a couple times, but there is also the scene where like he comes back and apologizes, and they do have the like nice moment where like that's kind of how the Kirk that we know becomes. So you see the seeds for everything.
Yeah.
It's just not developed yet.
Yes, definitely.
Though Sulu out the gate was like, I got it.
Yes, absolutely. It was cool to see Sulu in the garden and like, this is just who I am. Thanks, Yao Min, for bringing me my tray of colorful food. Also, there was a lot of eating in this episode, like way more than I feel like we normally see.
Yeah, I think because this is an early episode, they are trying really hard to establish this is life. This is where we live and work. And so, yeah, of course we would like snack here and there or whatever.
Seeing Yao Min Rand just like nomming on celery in the hallway also was like...
Stealing from Sulu's plate, too.
Yeah, like she was also like... I understand her character is like messy for lots of reasons, but she just felt so aggressive and abrupt in this episode that just also didn't feel true to what else we see of her character later. Like she feels more natural for the dialogue that Uhura had of like that like very airy and light, like that felt more appropriate, where this like go chase an asteroid it was like very funny, but also like what the fuck is happening here. It was bizarre. And you're right, there were a lot of you can see the seeds for where the foundations for where these characters become, but it's weird to like jump all the way back and be like, what the fuck is happening here?
Rand, I'm always so conflicted with Rand now that we like know more about her and we've like done all this research. Like, I really wish we lived in a world where this like actress and this character got to be developed and have better stuff without gross 60s sexism, both in real world and in universe. Even like there's even like apocrypha in this of like the guy who was like the plant hand puppet was like really inappropriate with her and would like, because he was like on the ground and would like make like look up her skirt and like pinch her and stuff, and like this woman got harassed so much. And I wish that there existed a universe where she didn't get harassed all the time to the point where she had to leave the show. But then I also always feel guilty because like character-wise, I'm like glad she left the show, because had she existed, because they were trying to make her this like sex pot, it would have derailed, I think, a lot of the relationships, shippy or otherwise. I think Kirk would have been more of like the horn dog that people think that he is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I always want like Grace to have had a better life, but I also am glad when Janice goes away. And I don't even hate Janice as a character. I hate the idea that she would have derailed where the other characters went. But I wish that we had justice for both Janice and Grace.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope that in like future Trek shows that like in the way that they're exploring the other characters at different points in their life, it would be nice to see Rand at a different point in her life. That would be really cool.
That would be great, especially because she does show up in like smaller roles in the movies. Like she'll be, you know, at a computer console, so she's not like a yeoman anymore. It would be cool to be like, what is the adventures of Yeoman Rand after she leaves the Enterprise?
Right.
Give that character some like better shit to do.
Give her some justice a little bit. Yeah, I agree. And especially seeing like how they changed her character so much, even just in the like first season. Justice for Janice Rand.
Justice for cool hair too.
Weird. Yeah, it was, I don't know. There were things I liked about it. This is the beginnings of, they do great sweat makeup on Star Trek, and like there's a lot of really good sweat makeup in this, which was awesome. Everybody really nailed, this is a hot fucking planet and we're all going goddamn miserable. Crater was a fucking there's so much creeping going
Just, like,
on in
pop
this.
it up.
Yeah, like, hey, I'm over here. Here's my face. I'm creeping around in here and like scuttling between ruins. Like,
Which
there's
makes
a
sense
lot
for
of that.
Nancy, because she's actually like a creature, an animal.
Yeah.
But Crater is just also a creep.
Yeah, he's just like turned into a creep because the only person he's been living with is this creature. And like, he explains like, she always presents as Nancy to me because I was so in love with Nancy and Nancy cared so much about this creature that's how it always presents, which is weird to think about, that they're all sitting in this briefing room and everyone is seeing Bones and he's just like, Nancy's just chilling next to me. Yeah, yep. I can recognize the creature. No, I won't tell you who it is. Like, it was so, and I think the guy who played Crater did a good job of that, of like looking at Bones in a way that was like, yep, I can absolutely identify the creature no matter how it's presented. Like, I thought that was very effective.
You know what is so wild? I have obviously seen this episode so many times, and I understand that while looking at the same creature, people can see different things simultaneously. But like halfway through, I forget that, and I'm like, oh, it's just a regular old shapeshifter that has one form. And I never picked up that, like, in that meeting, everybody else is seeing Bones and Crater is seeing Nancy.
Yeah.
I'm a ding dong.
It's just like an interesting moment to think about too, as an actor, of like, I have to see this person as someone totally different and manage that emotion of being interrogated about like, so do you know where it is on the ship? No, I sure do not.
And it's like you're trying to be like, frame this as you're being like valiant or whatever, but like you just get to see your dead wife whenever you want.
Right. Yeah.
So like, don't act like you're not selfish.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And like, Bones is being so suspect in that scene. He's where like, it's like, it's the creature just wants to feed, and when it's not hungry, it's not aggressive. And like, why no one in that scene was like, what is going on with you?
Bones would be like, let's fucking kill it.
Yeah. Bones doesn't care about research. Bones is like, I can look at this when it's dead. I don't give a fuck if it's alive anymore. Who gives a shit? And like, the idea that Bones would just present like very casually, like, what if we just set up like a nice trap, and like, not even a trap, we just like approach it and give it some salt. And they're like, how the fuck are we supposed to do that? I don't, just a suggestion.
You don't have a whole room that's just salt? If you did have a room that's whole salt, where would it be? If we had a room. I just forgot where is the salt room?
I did like the styling of the monster when we finally got to see it. I liked the explanation about the really tentacle hands and the like spots all over everyone's face, that like that's how he's touching them. I thought that was very cool and effective, and I liked the shift back and forth at the end of the like defense mechanism of like, no, I'm Nancy, don't kill me, even though you've just seen me as this like horrifying monster. Yeah. Like, no,
a truly horrifying monster too, especially like sometimes we look at stuff from like the 60s when it's all practical and you can be like, okay, so that's just a dude under a rug. Or like, this is really shitty makeup. But like, I think the design for the salt monster is really terrific.
It's very good.
It's really good. And in one of the like notes I read, like one of the producers or costume people, I think it was one of the costume people for Star Trek 2009, was like, oh yeah, I was trying to redesign some, maybe costume, whatever. Somebody on the design team for Star Trek 2009 was like, oh yeah, I tried to redesign a bunch of aliens, and one of them that I was redesigning was the salt monster because I just thought it looked so hokey, and I just wanted to like slap that person in the face. Like, as somebody who does design, why can't you like appreciate how fucking good this was? And it actually holds up pretty well, and you're being a jerk. And also, why would you even update that alien? That alien's not even like supposed to be like really, it's sentient, but it's not sentient in our way. It operates as an animal. You just didn't do your research because none of you ding dongs did your research for Star Trek 2009, you assholes. Anyways.
Yeah, I appreciated that. I liked that the costume design was really good for that. I like, you pointed this out too, that once it's like revealed that Nancy is this creature, like her movement immediately changes, and it's like, I'm not even pretending to be a human anymore. I'm just like, ooh, wonky weird arms. Yeah. Like, I'm this weird alien. Meerkat head. Watching Spock slap her across the face multiple times was pretty shocking.
Could the real Nancy
take this? Bones is like, I have a lot of conflicting feelings right now.
Yeah, I also think it's interesting that they go out of their way to explain that, like, it is a creature, it is more animal. It's not like us. It's sentient in a way, but it's also like feeding on our memory. So, like, kind of everything that it says is still driven to the one purpose of like feed, feed, feed. It's like, eat, fuck, sleep type deal. Like, these are the things I have to do. And I'm just I'm parroting your memories and words back to you.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like mean anything to me.
Yeah. There were things about it that I liked, but because the character stuff, which is like a lot of what we watched this for, weren't solidified, I was just like, I felt like it was being pulled in and out a lot of the episode, which was weird.
It is an interesting, like, ethical dilemma, though. Like, if you meet the last of its species and, like, even though it's a monster, like, what do you do? And, like, so I do appreciate that even though this is an early episode and it is the first one, that it still has, it's not just, like, pure space shoot 'em up whatever. It does still have the classic, like, Star Trek ethical dilemma and like, I get, considering the episodes that they were going to pull from, because like the first couple filmed were Where No Man Has Gone Before, which you haven't seen, but that was supposed to be the original pilot, and it's very, I like it a lot, but it deals with some lofty themes. And then this one, which is like kind of a monster of the week, but still has the ethical stuff. The Naked Time, the one where they're all running around, being insane. Mud's Women, which was prostitution in space, and Charlie X. Like, I'm pretty sure those were the 5. Maybe there was one more, but like that's like the handful you have to choose from. So if you're looking at them, you're like, okay, well, we're not going to do the prostitute one right away. Charlie X is kind of a weird episode. Where No Man Has Gone Before, it's kind of too lofty. Like, we don't know if we can get people in. So we have The Naked Time and Man Trap. Naked Time is batshit insane. The Man Trap is pretty insane, but also like has a horror. Let's do the Man Trap. Like, I see the logic, which is interesting because Roddenberry, Nimoy, Shatner, a lot of people who worked on this specific one do not like this episode.
I can see why.
Yeah.
Especially as you have more in the can, I can see how they would look at this episode and be like, this is not a good representation of what Star Trek becomes. Like, we talked about when we watched Charlie X that, like, that's a horror episode, and it is strange to think that that's the direction that it was pointed as a series, that it was like a horror show almost.
Well, this is a horror one. I mean, I'm going to say this now. You probably won't remember by the time we get to Where No Man Has Gone Before. But Where No Man Has Gone Before also has a horror element of like a person on the crew getting godlike powers and then becoming like overrun with them and being like, I am a dictator now, essentially.
Interesting.
So like that is also a horror element. Honestly, if you think about Naked Time's hilarious, but like that's got a horror element. There's like a lot. Mud's Women isn't horrific, but
yeah,
Mud's Women is its own
it's its own deal. I guess the idea that a woman can trick you with makeup is horrific for the 60s. Sure, whatever. I can accept that.
But it's interesting too, because like sci-fi, we talk about this all the time in Spooky 30s. Check it out. Sci-fi and horror like really are side by side a lot of the time, and they cross streams a lot. And
yeah,
especially if you think about the Twilight Zone being really popular right now, and there's like even Twilight Zone crossing over with this, like certain writers and stuff on this episode specifically, but obviously throughout Star Trek, and like Twilight Zone is all like horror stuff too. So this is what's popular. How do we make it different? But what's popular? I can see why they went with this one.
Yeah, I'm glad that they ultimately changed the direction to be more sci-fi and less with the horror. But like I feel like maybe if I had watched this episode, if I had watched them in order and watched this one first, it wouldn't, I mean, obviously it wouldn't. I wouldn't have connection to the characters in the same way, and it wouldn't feel so abrupt to have this like change in the characters. But now that I've seen so much, it just feels bizarre. And like, this isn't what this show is. Like, our casual fan questionnaire last season was like, would you show this to a newbie? And like, weirdly, no, absolutely I wouldn't. Like, even though it's one of the first episodes, like, it's not a good representation of what this show becomes. And so it would be weird to be like, are you interested in Star Trek? Here's something that has nothing to do with what the rest of the series looks like.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of shows are like that. Even like when we get to the X-Files episode, it takes a lot of shows some time to really find their footing of like, oh, this is what this show is meant to be. That's why I feel like you hear all the time like, oh, I love the show. You can skip the first season.
Yeah.
Like, what I don't think I should.
And it's like hard too because I hate being told like you really got to give it 3 seasons before this 12 season show gets good, and it's like, okay, well, I don't want to do that. But at the same time, also as someone who watches television, I'm aware that sometimes the first season isn't great. Like, I fucking love Mad Men. First season, it's fine. I've literally never watched the second season because I get like 2 episodes in and I'm like, oh, that's right, this is garbage and I don't actually need to watch it. I'll just completely skip this season. And like,
that's so wild.
And it has never affected my viewing because like one of those characters comes back and is important later and they cover it in the like, here's what you missed on Mad Men stuff. And like, I don't recommend a lot of people watch Mad Men because it's hard to tell someone like, yeah, you can really skip 2 whole fucking seasons of this show, but you also need to like get connected to characters. And so it's hard to tell someone like, just skip this, because then when you jump into season 3, you're like, who the fuck who are these people? And so it's a very fine, weird line to cross.
Yeah, I mean, not everything can be supernatural.
The bad from the beginning.
No, the pilot of Supernatural is a fucking banger.
I've watched the Bees episode. I know that's early, and I know it's bad.
That was a bad episode and a great season. Anyways, we're talking about Star Trek. Yeah, I mean, the critical reception both back then and now is very mixed. There are people. Like, Hollywood Reporter said it was a winner. The Daily Reporter was like mixed. It said, yeah, it's really far-fetched sci-fi, but like they really loved Shatner's like acting and like some of the plots of the initial episodes. Daily Variety like fucking hated it, and specifically was like the lack of meaningful cast leads was a detriment to it because, like they said, they feel weird so far. Like they haven't slotted into who they are to become this iconic crew, right? But then current critics, you know, a lot of people have done like rewatches and stuff. I think AV Club was the big one with Zach Hanlon, and then like Tor has done a couple. But Zach Hanlon like really likes this episode. He says it demonstrated what the series was gonna become, and therefore it has like a lot of value, which I think is fair.
Yeah.
And then there are like some writers at Tor.com that's like, it's not a great introduction, but there are some good things about it, like Rand and Sulu. Like they had a fun interaction, right? But then there are other people who at Tor.com was like, this is trash. Let's not talk about this ever again.
Fair.
And even the people on the script, like Roddenberry didn't want it to be the first one. Shatner didn't want it to be the first one. The editor, okay, so this gets so messy. So Lee Irwin wrote the treatment, but George Clayton Johnson wrote the episode. And then Roddenberry rewrote it a lot. George Clayton Johnson only wrote this one episode. He was originally tasked to write Piece of the Action, but Roddenberry didn't like the vibes on that one, so he moved them to this one and kicked Irwin off of this one. But he just moved people around. Like, okay, you're getting canceled on this episode, but you're moving on this one. And Johnson is known for, I think he co-wrote Logan's Run, the book.
Okay,
whatever. So Johnson wrote this episode. Roddenberry punched it up a lot to the point that Johnson, when he watched it, was like, this is not what I wrote. And even some of the editors and stuff were like, yeah, what Johnson wrote was better, but this is what we got. Though I like to point out that Johnson didn't, quote, understand the character of Spock and didn't think that the audience would either. So he may be an idiot. So like maybe Roddenberry was right to punch up his script. And there was like a bunch of shit that was changed. Like, it was supposed to be like a wish fulfillment thing, but then that was too similar to Where No Man Has Gone Before and blah, blah, blah. So they like scale it down, scale it up, scale it down. It got very messy. It is like truly setting the stage for the beginning of like the scripts are a nightmare. Let's go.
From jump.
From the jump. I do think it was Johnson's idea to do the like last of the species thing though, which is one of the parts that I think make this episode feel valid as a Star Trek episode. Yeah. So like maybe he's not a total idiot. And I do like Logan's Run. So, but to be like, people are going to get Spock. Fuck you, dude. How dare you?
Yeah.
The horny women of the 60s very much understood Spock.
Yes, absolutely.
Men don't get it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, I did like that speaking of horny women of the 60s, I like that we got to see Bones in the black t-shirt in this too.
Yeah.
Also, connecting these two episodes, I love that Bones puts his uniform on to go to sleep, much like we later see Mulder in the episode we're going to talk about, put his clothes on to go to sleep, which is like, what is happening here, men?
They just know what makes them comfortable. Job.
Business uniforms.
I'm good at one thing. It is my job. So I will just sleep in my uniform.
Both of us have ex-wives we don't want to talk about.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting that this episode aired 2 days earlier in Canada. So technically Canada was the first country to get Star Trek.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought that was funny. Especially because there are a lot of people in the show that are from Canada.
Yeah.
Notably William Shatner. This is the episode that gave Nimoy tinnitus. So everybody got tinnitus, but this is the one that Nimoy got tinnitus from.
Real early. Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, Arena is season 1 too. So yeah, everybody got tinnitus season.
No wonder they became such advocates against it. They're like, hey, Hollywood, stop fucking your actors up.
Stop blowing. Let's do fake bombs. That's what they do in IMAD now. No, we're not using a real bomb. We can't. Our ears cannot handle it. I did think it was interesting that Stan Robinson at NBC, so like a producer or something, I don't know, he suggested to Roddenberry that they might check with a medical professional to see if you drain the salt out of somebody's body, if they would actually die. And so Roddenberry was like, okay. And so then like contacted Kellum DeForest Research Center, and they were like, yeah, I mean, it would never happen, but if you drain the salt, all of the salt out of somebody, yeah, they would die. You do need it. Thanks for the call. Goodbye. Which I thought was really funny. You might want to check out the science on this one. This is the thing you want us to check the science on? Whether or not a human body depleted of salt would die? Okay. That seems like a fine use of all of our time. We'll do that.
I did love the line that Spock says about explaining that his blood is different. My ancestors evolved out of a different ocean. And like, I love that idea that you come out of a different ocean and that's what creates the internal organs and why your blood is different. And like, I know the Vulcans are evolved from cats or whatever.
Well, that's the cat stuff. I think at least in this point is still like fan canon. It's like accepted fan canon, but it's still like fan canon.
Yeah, or at least that the show points in that direction that can create this fan canon. Right. But I like this idea that Spock specifically in canon is like, yeah, we came out of a different ocean. Of course we're fucking
different species.
Yeah, I liked that a lot. I thought that was clever. And also it's like that is a good character introduction to Spock. That like, I'm dying on this table, sort of. But also let me give you a fact about how my culture is better than yours, just so you know. Did you know I was a child of two worlds? Just wanted to make sure everyone knew.
Did you know that I was a child of two worlds? It's interesting, too, because we see the cut, which definitely has red blood, but then they just, like, smeared green paint on it. So this was, I think it was Mark Daniels' idea. Yeah, Mark Daniels did direct this one. It was Mark Daniels' idea to have Spock have green blood because he was like, he's an alien, we'll make him different. And Roddenberry fucking hated that idea and tried to remove it in post, but couldn't. And so they were like, I guess this motherfucker's got green blood now. Now it's like a staple of the character, which I think is so interesting.
It's so bizarre.
Mark Daniels is the real one, man. Everybody's got
if he didn't have green blood, what would Bones be racist about later?
Yeah. He would figure it out.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, totally. It's the ears. Oh, speaking of his wound, I just have to point out the sparkly bandage. Oh, amazing. So good. Why was it so sparkly? No idea.
Maybe it's got little,
healing crystals.
Healing crystals in it. Yeah, I love that costumes and set deck on Star Trek, the TV show specifically, were like, how do we make it future glitter? Definitely
you know
glitter.
What people love? Fucking glitter.
You know what will definitely exist in the future because we can't get rid of it? Glitter. This episode had a couple names, so like obviously they went with the man trap. I think Johnson's title for it was The Damsel with a Dulcimer. He was pissed that it got changed to man trap, but James Blish, the original script title that was done by Ewan, I think the name was The Unreal McCoy, which is a hilarious name. And James Blish, our dude, was like, oh, you want a script of this? I'm definitely calling it The Unreal McCoy. So it does exist. But Johnson, the damsel with the dulcimer, terrible name.
Terrible name.
So, like, again, maybe he sucked. I just like to point out that I'm still pissed that he was like, I don't think Spock is going to work. It's like Spock's the only holdover character from the pilot.
Yeah, whatever.
What a ding-dong.
What a ding-dong.
I thought it was interesting. So Mark Daniels, who we stand on this podcast, had some apprehension about using the Monster of the Week format that started, become popular with things like Twilight Zone and stuff. Because he was like, do you go for cheap thrills or do you go for like a more intelligent approach? Like, what are we trying to do? And I feel like you can really feel that struggle in this episode specifically, but in the first like couple episodes. And then he added, if we treat everything that it's real, that's how we can ensure that audiences buy into it. So like we can never, as directors and like writers and actors, like make this feel fake at all. Like we have to buy into it or it's not going to work. I like that he had like a interesting ethical dilemma. The salt vampire was the first of many aliens to take up residence in producer Dressman's office. I think Bobby's talked about it before, where of like, oh, in this office, there's this alien and this alien. This was the first. Yeah. Like, you know what? Dibs. I want this. I want this terrifying monster. Yeah, it's so great. Creature doesn't really return a lot, even though it's an iconic creature. It did. I talked about the Star Trek 2009 one. It was cut. The creature does return in Star Trek Online, which is like an MMO role-playing game, which sounds really cool every time everybody talks about it. And then I think about it and then I'm like, oh yeah, I don't play video games. Why would I do that? But it sounds cool. And then there is a salt vampire that shows up in a Lower Decks episode, Ephraim and Dot. No, Ephraim and Dot is the Star Trek short where it appears. And then Lower Decks, it's just in like the background of an episode, I think. I don't know. So it shows up here and there, but like for such an iconic character, it doesn't show up a lot, which kind of makes sense. Because again, it's not that
it's the last of its species.
It's the last of its species. It's also like not, well, we think it's the last of its species. Like who fucking knows? Right. Crater didn't seem super great at his job. But also like, I think it's interesting that it doesn't show up a lot because like, again, it is an animal. Like when we look at the Horda is more sentient than the salt vampire. Like the Horda is like, you just can't understand me. I'm a silicone creature. Like, yeah, I need to exist, but like I can, feel pain, all that stuff. Like I can communicate in a way you just can't understand me. And then ultimately it's like, we can learn to work together. And now we create this co-mingled society where this creature is just like, I'm ripping off your memories. I need fucking salt. That's all I need.
Yeah. Interesting.
That's how I read it anyways. Who knows? Another thing I thought was really interesting, so we've talked a lot about it showing us the Monster of the Week format, but also having this ethical dilemma. I think that thinking of it in the 60s, like Star Trek isn't perfect about this, but like I think it's really important that they have that conversation of like, what do we do with it? Because in other stuff, sci-fi and stuff at the time, it's like we kill predators, period. Like we don't talk about how to do it at all. Like we just are like, this is a barren planet. This planet is dangerous. We kill anything on this planet. And like to have that, do we not thing, I think is really important. And I know I keep bringing it up, but it just is because it sets the tone for the whole fucking show.
Yeah. I feel like if this had been later in the series, Spock would have fought more to keep it alive.
Yeah. Right. I absolutely agree because we see that many times of like, well, but what about the science that we're losing and the
ethical dilemma of killing the last of a species?
Right. Vulcans are vegetarians, right? Like that's a huge deal. I looked up 3 things that don't really have to do anything with this episode. They feature in this episode, but these are all new things that I learned. There is a female crew member wearing pants in the corridor. It's only one of 2 episodes where a female crew member is wearing pants on TOS, and that's this one and then Charlie X, which is really interesting because in the TNG first episodes, there's a couple crewmen in the background, men wearing the skirts or the dresses. And it's interesting that in both eras, they tried to be like, what's gender clothing? And then both times they were like, psych, never mind.
Yeah.
Which I think is a funny parallel, especially when you get to TNG. There are a lot of episodes early TNG that are just straight ripoffs of the other one. Of the other one being TOS. I finally looked up those fucking food cubes. I was like, what are these food cubes? I've never really known. I was trying to look up to see like what they were actually made of, like craft services. But then I found, so they're they've been like retconned or canonized or whatever. They're called Gristhera, and they are Andorian morsels, and they're just very popular. And so when Andoria was like part of the Federation and they were all sharing their cultures, the rest of the Federation was like, this shit slaps. And then made it like a really common hors d'oeuvre at Federation diplomatic functions. And because they can be consumed in like bite-sized things, they're just like very common like snacks and stuff. And so, you know, because when we see Kirk in Trouble with Tribbles, he's like, oh, I want a chicken sandwich, but we see him just having a snack on the bridge. He's like, oh, give me some Gristhera. This shit slaps. And so I learned that and I got very delighted about it.
That is delightful.
The last thing that I looked up is I wanted to know what the Swahili that was said, because we know that Uhura, that's her background. And so it was really cool that they were like, hey, we're going to try and do sex magic on you, but we are also going to use your native language and give you more of a background, even though this is, you know, first episode shown, 6th episode filmed. And the Swahili, what he says to her is, how are you, friend? I think of you, beautiful lady. You should never know loneliness.
Oh, okay.
And so she was like, and I think that really explains her look, where she's like, what? Oh, you did speak Swahili. That's pretty nice. But at first she's like, you're kind of a creep, but you're hot and being kind of sweet. I don't know. And then, oh, do you want to suck this all on my face? Please no.
But please do not.
I know that's a lot. It's just a lot because there's, you know, it's first episode. There's even though there's like a not a lot going on in the actual episode, and I had to jump through a lot of hoops to make a fun summary, like there's a lot of apocrypha and stuff. And I left all of the costume stuff because I thought Bobby would like to talk about the monster. I saved that for Bobby.
Bobby's like, I'm bored.
I guess we'll do the monster bit.
I was internally like, did I put that up? Yeah, I did. Okay, we're good. We're fine.
I thought, you know, usually I like that stuff. Do you have any other thoughts before we move on to synopsis showdown?
Nope, that's it.
All right. Bones learns the hard way that you can't go home again, because if you do, your ex will try and suck the salt from your face.
Sex magic is used, but this time it's against the crew. A salt vampire turns Bones into a puddle of feelings while making him choose between his ex-girlfriend and his husband's.
I know you said a space salt vampire, but it sounded like you said assault vampire. Like it was like
I mean, it kind of is an assault vampire.
All vampires are assault vampires. Like, that's true, but now...
But he's like specifically an assault vampire because he's like, I really got to grab you by the face. It's really important for my salt sucking.
Assault vampire.
Is there more salt in your face than any other part of your body? Why the face?
For the drama.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, those people have like sucker parts all over, so they just start with their face and move down so that they make sure that they get all the salt.
Okay, that actually makes sense.
Is my headcanon.
I accept it.
Are you ready for Scully? No. Are you ready for Mulder? It's me. Oh wait, it's not me. I'm in space or dead. I'm not sure.
No one knows.
How are you doing? Not great? Okay.
Yeah, I am.
You are really upsetting me. On several levels.
All right, here we go. In the opening scene, a man picks up a woman at a corporate party and takes her home to have sex in his hot tub, a thing people were inexplicably super into in the 90s. Oh no, Joe, she's actually a vampire, and bites him to drink his blood when, bam, 2 other dudes and another lady show up to also drink his blood. But also, in truly the most 90s scare tactic shit of all time, stab him to death with hypodermic needles? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Mulder, meanwhile, is having a big sad in his office where he's filing Scully's badge and glasses away in an X-file as she's recently been abducted by aliens, aka Gillian Anderson had to go give birth. At this point in the series, the FBI is still really determined to have Mulder work on literally anything except spooky alien shit, so he's brought in for a series of ritualistic vampire slayings where the perps write Bible verses on the wall in the victim's blood. In an uncharacteristic bout of actual detective work, Mulder goes to a blood bank where a night watchman has recently been hired and catches this dude straight up chugging on blood, so he has him arrested. During the interrogation, the man tells Mulder he's part of an unholy trinity. He's the son, and there's also a father and an unholy spirit. And they're vampires, man, and they're gonna be immortal. To which Mulder is like, that shit's fake. Throw him in the brig and let's see what happens when the sun shines on him. LOL. Turns out sunlight kills that motherfucker dead. And Mulder is like, oh my god, no way. I honestly thought that shit was fake. Mistake I'll never make again. Doing some more actual detective work, Mulder discovers during an examination of this crispy-ass body that he has a tattoo of a local vampire club, a thing that definitely exists in real life and is not made up for the X-Files at all.
I don't know. In the 90s, there definitely were local vampire clubs.
All right, fair enough. That's fair enough. Mulder, of course, goes to the club where he meets Kristen. Her name is Kristen. It's a very normal name. It's repeated a lot in this episode. And super weirdly interrogates her about whether or not she's worried about AIDS. That's how he flirts. Because, she drinks blood and it's the 90s. She's like, wow, man, bad vibes, and leaves with another man. But Mulder is gonna Mulder and follows them home, quote unquote home, to a restaurant I guess this dude owns. Super fucking unclear. Thinking that she's going to kill him, but before he can prove anything, this dude sees Mulder creeping on them through the window and beats his ass. Too bad for dude, though, because he is promptly murdered by the other two men and this other mysterious lady for sort of seemingly unclear reasons. Mulder, again, doing excellent detective work, not sarcastic, I do mean that for real, finds out that Kristen used to live in 2 other cities where serial killings have been taking place, and the police search her house where they find all kinds of quote-unquote blood paraphernalia and bread filled with blood. But then in a baffling turn of events, the police leave Mulder alone in her house where she returns and she's like, no, I am actually kind of a vampire, but not one of those vampires. It's like a whole deal. And they've been like following me around the country because I wouldn't join their unholy trinity. Also, I've got a lot of daddy trauma. So we're just going to like lay this out because it's the 90s. And so they get straight to boning. Mulder, that's a terrible idea. And bad news for Mulder, the son is back from the dead and he's pissed. The next morning, the son is like, hey, I had to watch you guys fuck and wait for you to finish so I could tell you to kill this dude, and also you should definitely kill this dude, and if you drink the blood of a true believer, you can become one of us. Which is hilarious since Mulder literally just started believing in vampires 4 minutes ago. And she's like, yeah, man, totally. And approaches Mulder with a knife, but psych, she kills the father instead, who is chilling in the bathroom waiting for them. And a whole vampire chase ensues with impalings and car crashes. And finally, after tricking Mulder into running out of the house without her, a giant explosion, which is caused by Kristen sacrificing herself in order to destroy the vampires. Firefighters and police show up and find 4 bodies in the wreckage while Mulder stares longingly at Scully's cross on a hill. The end.
You forgot to say that he's dressed like a romance novel cover.
Yes, he is. He wearing Scully's cross and a billowy, open,
slightly buttoned, ruffled. His hair is windswept. His hairy chest is sticking out. He's running around. He's both the strong, sexy male and the damsel.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's his own romance novel.
Absolutely. There's a lot of Mulder doing a lot of Mulder stuff in this episode, and that is one of them.
Yeah.
What did you think of this episode? I
love Mulder and Scully, when they're sad, they're like, I'm gonna go have questionable sex. Bye. Which I guess is pretty relatable.
I've not thought of that. You're totally right.
I'm gonna explore some new kinks. And I'm
going to find the most questionable person in the seediest bar I can find, and we're going to fuck, and I'm going to be really excited and upset.
Excited. I am so excited, and the only thing that will help me is if I put both my life and your life at risk, but also sex.
AIDS?
Oh, fuck. Honestly, I was sitting there and watching it, and then this fucking club, which truly reminds me a lot of Exit, a bar that I think is closed down in Chicago, but I did take my clothes off for money many times in, questionably.
I thought the exact same fucking thing.
So
yes.
Do exist?
Yes, I believe Exit is closed down. It is also a bar where I also took my clothes off for money.
Oh, man. You would have to, take your shoes off and then step on your shoes because you didn't want to touch any part of it. And you were, trying. And then you were like, normally I'm not really precious about my costumes. I just throw them on the stage. I'll wash them. But I, chucked them into people's hands. Catch. Do not let this touch the ground.
Gross. That's fucking disgusting.
Oh, it was not great. The things we did as young burlesque performers. Woof. Yeah. Now I'm just thinking about that. Yeah. So when they were doing that, and she's like cutting her finger
with the biggest needle I've ever
I was
seen.
like, what is she? I thought like, because I was like, okay, she's definitely a vampire, so she's gonna take the syringe of her blood and then feed it to him. No. What she's gonna do is gonna steal some of his blood and save it for later as like a tribute to her. Oh no, she's just gonna cut her hand.
She's gonna poke her finger.
Not even suck, just like, and it was all like sanitized and wrapped up nice. Like, you just wasted a needle for nothing, bro.
Why didn't you just use a safety pin? Like,
just have them bite you real hard. You guys are into that. And like, for a moment you were like, is Mulder gonna? And then he was like, AIDS. It wasn't even like, aren't you worried about, AIDS or like, it was just, it's like he meant the word stop and he just went, AIDS. That's his safe word.
Hilarious safe word. To be fair, if you're having sex with someone and they just yell
safe word,
they just yell AIDS, it would stop. The sex would definitely stop.
This is AIDS is not funny. We should laugh, but this is funny. Mulder sucks. Yeah, this is again one of those episodes that's like so early that you like see where things are going, but it also is so early that it does feel out of character and out of place a little bit. It's not even out of character. Like, Mulder is very in character. It just doesn't feel like, I mean, you don't have Scully, so
it's the first episode without Scully, and so it is weird. Like, but that's part of the deal with this too, is especially when the local cop is like, don't you have a partner? And you just know Mulder wants to say, I have a partner. She's gone. She's been abducted by aliens.
Yeah, like, on one hand, it's really effective at that, of the like isolating and Mulder making reckless choices and like the reason behind them and like his sadness. Like, that all comes across, but like, and maybe it would feel better watching it in order, but also the X-File part, like the emotional part and the like storyline of the season and the abduction makes sense. The X-File sucks.
It's weird.
And it makes no sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
It's nonsensical. Okay. So you can see them in a mirror.
They can't see themselves in mirrors, I guess, because like they do break all of the mirrors because they don't want to, like, they think that they can't be seen in mirrors.
Right. But also, like, Mulder is like, oh, that can be a thing too, of like they break it so that they like feel like they can't look in it. So like, oh, psychological. But then Mulder's like, oh, I can see you in a mirror, so you're definitely just like a dude. But then he catches on fire in the sun, which kills vampires, but then he comes back.
Because they can't be killed unless it's by other vampires in their vampire club, which is weird. Like,
super weird.
When is that ever true of vampires?
Yeah. You have to drink the blood of a true believer, not of a vampire.
Right.
And what does true believer of vampires or true believer of God? Because they kill a bunch of priests and like New Age people and like Jesuits and like they kill a bunch of like quote believers. They're using biblical quotes, the cannibalism one, the quote in the Bible that justifies cannibalism,
which is the wrong quote written on the wall. There is no John 52:64. They're definitely referencing John 6:54.
Yeah,
I was like, what the fuck is this?
You know, I kind of like that detail of like they're even bad at the thing that they're doing.
Yeah.
And Mulder tries to set her up too with like the beginning of the quote, and she just says eternal life, and he's like, oh, so you don't do like a lot of research. So that's not your vibe. Okay. I mean, I do quite a bit.
I do a lot of research.
I have trunk files, but like no big deal. 8. Yeah, so the lore doesn't make any type of sense. Hilarious that the like unholy spirit girl is just like Romanian. They're like, because vampires are from Romania. Dracula, I don't know. Sure.
Who the fuck knows?
They can't be in light bulbs, but they can be. What do you mean you can't be in light bulbs?
White light. They can be under red light, but not regular fluorescent
How
light
did
bulbs.
this dude even get a job? I would like to interview for this job at night.
In the dark.
In the dark place.
He just did it over the phone. And they were like, sure, whatever. We need a night watchman really bad. I love the delivery guy, too, being like, that creep night watchman down there. Whew, problems. So I've got so many problems with that guy. I'm not worried about this man actively pointing a gun at me.
He's nervous at first, and then he looks at Mulder's in the eyes and is like, oh, you're no threat to me. A negative threat. I got it. I bring my own light bulbs to deliver things.
I love that scene, too, when he walks in on John, the son, just straight chugging blood. And he starts chucking blood at Mulder. And he's like, oh my goodness.
AIDS. I love that the coroner or whatever that comes to find the son burnt up is like, really, he's trying to be the Scully, and he's like, well, it could be porphyria disease, which is a disease that like can, burn you and you have to drink a little bit of blood. And Mulder's like, oh yeah, but like maybe, but like he wouldn't like catch on fire, and here's all this other facts. And the dude just goes, you are really upsetting me on several levels. It's the pause for me. It's just, you are really upsetting me on several levels.
I love the like slow blink that he's doing while Mulder's explaining everything to him. Like, do I stop him? Do I interrupt? Nope. I just let him talk at me. Okay. Whew.
Yep.
This is a lot. You need a partner.
Yeah, you need somebody else to share these facts with. Not me. I work in the LAPD offices. I got enough to deal with. I
have enough problems.
I do not need any of this. I love the dude that Kristen takes this other dude home or / to the restaurant, wherever, and they're like casually playing, doing a little blood play. Mulder's peeping Tom. This guy comes out, beats up Mulder, and is like, we're two consenting adults, bro. He just comes out and is like, you will not kink shame me today, sir. Which, honestly, good for that dude.
I mean, I agree. I also love that after she pricks her finger in the club and Mulder's like, AIDS, no, I can't deal with this. She just walks over to this dude and he just immediately starts drinking her blood, and Mulder looks disgusted. Mulder,
face,
who will touch anything at a crime scene, has already put things in his mouth he should not be putting in his mouth.
But he's not going to do it for funsies. He needs a reason. He needs a purpose to put bullshit in his mouth.
Isn't this an investigation? Put it in your mouth, Mulder. That's what you do. Your two investigative techniques are stare into the middle distance and put it in your mouth. And that's it.
It's just not the same when your partner's in space, This hit's different.
Scully's the only one I trust to give me emergency medical care after I put bullshit in my mouth.
It is very much like, I'm going on this planet. I need bones because if I die, he will bring me back to life. I need Scully right next to me before I put something in my mouth, because if I, start to convulse, she will fix me. I can't just be doing it out here on my own. Can somebody explain to me what is sexy about shaving another person's face?
I don't know. I also find it super weird. I also think it's weird that they didn't finish shaving before they had sex.
Also, okay, drinking somebody else's blood is already gross. What do you mean you're going to lick his blood that is spiced with shaving cream? Absolutely not. It is one thing to be a cannibal. It is a whole nother bag of worms to eat shaving cream. And I tangentially approve of only one of them.
I love the idea that if you were still single and dating and you met someone and they were like, yeah, I'm into a little light blood play, love to suck a little blood, you're like, that's not my thing, but I'm not gonna kink shame you. But if they were like, just get a can of shaving cream, just pop that bad boy in my mouth, you'd be like, I'm reporting you to the police. Get out of my house.
A cab, but also I have called 911. Okay, those are my thoughts. I don't have any other thoughts. Except for, final thought, the actor that played the firefighter at the end, after the giant, ridiculous explosion. And then Mulder, first of all, okay, I have more thoughts. Never mind. Why the fuck was shit on fire? Like, I get it that it's like California and California has fires, but like, why is it in this episode? For what purpose? For why? I thought they were going to be like, oh, these vampires live in the flame or whatever, or like the fires follow them, or like, you know, whatever, like anything.
Totally unrelated.
Nothing. Shit's just on fire, and then this whole giant house explodes while shit is already on fire. So I'm assuming it's really dry and it just doesn't catch more fire. It is a completely self-contained fire to the point where Mulder is sitting on the very beautiful green grass right next to the explosion, having a feel.
It doesn't make any sense.
Was California on fire at the time? And they were like, well, we're filming California, so maybe let's just like work the fires in case it gets real smoky on filming days, because we cannot afford.
Well, they were filming in Vancouver. Like, was Vancouver on fire? I have no idea. I truly don't know. It's really weird. Like, seeing the shots of the fire are very cool, and like watching the helicopters release the like fire powder or fucking whatever is very cool. But again, unrelated to like anything else that's going on.
The firefighters are so busy. There's like 100 of them for this like house explosion that's completely self-contained. They have a whole forest to be dealing
I guess
with.
at the beginning the cop does say like, I can't give you any resources because we're just like super fucking busy because of all of these fires.
Why doesn't he just say, I can't give you any resources because we're the worst cops in the country?
Right? This is LAPD. We have no resources to give you because we're bullshit. Yeah, I don't know. Because apparently the cops are helping the firefighter. Oh, totally unclear. It makes no fucking sense.
Cops don't help.
No, they don't have a constitutional duty to do bullshit. So, this is the 90s. That's before that was made.
Vampires, sure. Helpful cops?
Absolutely not.
No.
That shit's not real.
So, final thought is the actor who plays the firefighter who is comforting Mulder at the end was like unreasonably good at that.
Yeah.
It was like, because the acting in this is really uneven, and then he comes in and is like, I got 10 lines, but I'm gonna steal this whole fucking scene. Finger guns out of here. It was so good. I was like, I want to know what this firefighter's deal is. Just follow him for the next episode. I'm sure he's got some, you know, weird family history that we can delve into, make an X-File. Let's get him back.
Oh my god.
Mulder needs a friend. He could have a firefighter friend.
He does need a friend. That's absolutely true. That house that gets exploded, it was the house. It was the mansion of a hockey player, Pavel Bure, Bure. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know how to pronounce that name. He was the leading name of the Vancouver Canucks at the time. So it's a real person's house that is hideous in the way that it's presented. It's very 90s.
Hilarious.
And the producers had an agreement for doing late filming on the property because, you know, a lot of it happens at night. Vampires, you know, night bullshit. And one of the neighbors was on vacation when they got the petition signed. And that one neighbor was like, I'm going to make this everyone's problem. And like threatened to sue Fox and was like, absolutely the fuck not. I don't want this shit in my neighborhood. Get the fuck out. And so they had to pay them in order to continue, like pay them separately in order to continue filming on the property, which I find hilarious.
People are such assholes.
Especially in a neighborhood like that too, where it's like, can you even see what's going on over there? You're a mile away. Who gives a shit? And they were like, no. The boom mics outside? You're bringing the property value down. Absolutely the fuck not. Like, get the fuck out of here. Calm the fuck down. But the guy that rented them his house, Pavel, was thrilled. Was like, absolutely use my house. You want to be part of it? Absolutely. Please use my house.
Do you think that bedroom with just a bed and a chair was in his house?
I hope so.
Do you think that's his bedroom?
I truly hope so.
This giant house, sterile, terrible, and his bedroom is just a bed and a armchair. A large armchair. Or do you think, no, Mulder pulled that chair in that room. That room just had a bed, and he was like, ooh, this is not going to work for me.
I can't sleep on a bed, actually. I need a chair to sleep really uncomfortably in.
Fully pulled that chair into that room.
She went to the bathroom, and when she came back after the sex, he was in the chair, passed out. She's
Fully
like, where
dressed.
did this chair come from?
She was like, I was gone for 30 seconds.
I scoped the chair out before we had sex. Don't worry. I knew I was going to need this later. Not for sex purposes. No. For sleeping.
Missionary only.
You know. Oh my god. All right. I want to read you a line that comes directly from the Wikipedia summary because it's so out of character for Mulder. In this episode, Mulder is brought in to investigate a series of ritualistic murders in Los Angeles, which he first believes were the work of a cult. However, it turns out the perpetrators are a group of vampires. You've seen enough Mulder now to know, when does Mulder ever go in and be like, it's a cult? The answer is always, it's whatever spooky bullshit I can pull out of my bingo card. Like, it is wild. Like, that's how you can tell this is early season shit. That he's like, I'm still a profiler. Absolutely. Serial killers. This is some kind of cult for sure.
Well, he was trying to like also like not be spooky. He was like, it's definitely psychological. It's definitely delusion. Where nope, I was wrong. It's a vampire. Wrap it up. Let's go.
Later in the same article, Mulder does not believe the sun's claims. However, at sunrise, the sun is burned to death when sunlight comes from the window and touches his flesh. Mulder, taken aback, having previously assumed vampires to be purely mythological. And like, again, that is the last time Mulder will ever think that. Mulder's like, you caught me once, fool me once, shame on me. You fooled me twice, I won't get fooled again. Like,
Gotta be proven
absolutely
wrong
not.
once. Gotta be proven right 1,000 times.
Yeah. No, I found that very amusing that this is like the end of Mulder believing in anything normal. It's like, vampires, I'm in. This is it. This is who I am now.
Exsanguination. Look at my cow PowerPoint. There can be only one culprit.
The woman who plays the vampire girlfriend, Kristen, that Mulder fucks in this, was actually David Duchovny's girlfriend at the time. I know this fact. It's in a lot of the, like, apocrypha stuff that's written about it. But I know this because I was watching this episode, like, 1.5 years ago, and my husband came in and sat down and was like, who's this woman? She has a weird face. I'm going to look this woman up. And she's in a bunch of other stuff, which I'm sure Bobby will get into, as that is his role in our podcast.
That's his job.
But Michael found a bunch of like old 90s gossip sheets that talked about how they were dating and how he like brought her to a bunch of red carpets and then was like, actually, I would really love it if my girlfriend had this job on this show. And I was like, first of all, delighted that Michael found all this old gossip sheet information, but also delighted that David Duchovny was like, oh, is there a role in an episode without Scully? I have the perfect person for this.
I mean, it was a good kiss. They were like, wow. So that makes sense.
The second on-screen kiss that Mulder's had, and arguably a much better one than the one with Phoebe in Fire, because this one doesn't feel fucking awkward. It feels like they actually want to be kissing each other. Unsurprisingly, lots of fans were very pissed. They were like, nothing's happened with Scully yet. Season 2, LOL. Nothing will happen for several more seasons.
Well, in season 11, they will hold hands. So.
We're going to be really excited about it. Yeah, people were like pissed. But Chris Carter said too, I thought, this guy's basically a monk. Let's let him be human, especially because Scully's gone. It seemed like the perfect opportunity for him to do it. Which, like,
literally.
I guess. Sure, Chris Carter, you fucking crazy ass. So I like that.
I saw a picture of Chris Carter for the first time the other day. I had never seen a picture of him, and I was like, dislike this. I like the version in my head more. And honestly, like trying to think of his face right now, I can't really. I think I blacked it out. I was like, no, I like this mythos I've created in my brain more.
I'm so curious about what he looks like in your brain.
It's like a nebulous. It doesn't matter. But I just was like confronted with reality, and I was like, no. Just like, you look too normal.
That's funny because I think he looks very California surfer because he is.
But like normal, right? Like the, you know, not like a freak with a dartboard.
I mean, he is, but
yeah,
different, yeah. This episode has very mixed reviews. Some people really love it, saying that David Duchovny's performance is really excellent and compelling, which there are pieces of it that I totally agree with that. Some people call it wretched and complain that it doesn't do more with Scully's absence, which, like, LOL, jokes on those people because, like, they never stop talking about Scully's absence after this. It goes on forever. It becomes very important, so like let them have this weird vampire episode.
I love him wearing her chain.
I do too. I have a lot of feelings about it, especially because he files away like her glasses and her badge, and like in that moment decides like, no, I'm not putting this in here. That's a bridge too far. I'm gonna wear this close to my heart while I'm fucking this vampire woman. But like, I love that he wears it until she comes back, and then later when she comes back gives it to her in the hospital, and she's
I've seen that episode because that episode I was allowed to watch.
Yeah, and like in that moment where she's like, oh, I can't believe you saved this, like, it is very sweet. And when I'm doing a full series rewatch, that's one of the first moments when you see him wearing it for the first time where I'm like, they're in love, and then in 6 seasons they're gonna kiss for the first time. It's just so exciting. The main complaint also seems to be that Mulder and Kristen have this quote-unquote tedious romance that's all kinds of misguided, which is true. It is fucking weird. It's weird that he's just like chilling in her house and is like totally accepts like, yeah,
I've come to save you.
right? Like, you're my damsel. I'm gonna save you.
I saw your blood red, so I knew you were in trouble.
It's so weird. It's so fucking bizarre.
Also, like, okay, if you baked blood into bread, it wouldn't be just a bread bowl full of blood.
Right?
It would be baked into the blood.
Right. Did she bake the bread, open it up, pour a bunch of blood in it, and then be like, I need to keep this warm. I'm going to put it back in the oven.
Yeah, it was insane.
And then go to work, I guess.
Yeah, it was truly insane.
It did not make any fucking sense.
Soggy bottom.
Ridiculous. Oh my god. Co-writer Glenn Morgan felt like doing an episode on vampires was a quote-unquote mistake, but good thing that they like later returned to it later with Bad Blood, where it was like they took all of the things that were super misguided about this and then really like clarified and calcified what the lore of the vampires were in Bad Blood, because that is clear. Like, there are no questions about the lore in that one. And so I feel like that's because they looked back at this and were like, this was a fucking mess. We didn't know what the fuck we were doing with vampires. Let's bring it back and like really sew this wound shut. So I'm glad that they came back to it later.
It's not like vampire lore is like hard either.
I know.
Like,
it's
like not like you're pulling like a Pishtaka or something from like a different country that like doesn't have a lore that lots of people know. It's a vampire.
And one of the things that James Wong said too was that it's that vampires were so overdone at the time that it was like, why are we even doing a vampire? Everyone's doing fucking vampires. And then to do vampires and get them so mushy, it's like they read about vampires with one eye closed in the dark. Like they're like, I saw a couple words in here. We'll make it up. We'll do it live. Like it's very, very fucking bizarre. The other thing that James Wong said was that the script was a lot better than the show wound up being because Fox wound up the Fox censors had a lot of problems with the show. I guess unsurprisingly, AIDS, and they like took a lot out of the show, and specifically the original script was a lot kinkier and it revealed a lot more about blood fetishism, and these elements were like absolutely the fuck not. You have got to take this shit out.
You can't have all this blood fetish stuff at the height of AIDS.
Yeah, exactly. And Fox was like, no, bro, you've really got to cut this shit out. And so the episode suffers from the fact that a lot of the like lore that's tied into the blood fetishism is just like sucked away. Yeah, finger guns. That's all the apocrypha that I have. Synopsis showdown?
Sure.
All right. Mulder is almost killed by a vampire troop, but survives by sheer luck, and another woman that he's in love with dies.
Mulder tried not to believe, but then he accidentally set a vampire on fire. You gotta break some eggs, I had a hard time with my synopsis.
Yeah, my synopsis for this one didn't go very well. All right.
Deep Throat submission logs?
Let's do it.
Why don't you go chase an asteroid?
Hey, Janice, is that for me?
Don't you wish it was?
Starting with the man trap, there's a lot of apocrypha about this episode, like Stell said, because it is the first episode of Star Trek to ever air, especially in Canada.
Oh, but not in England. In England, a different episode. I think it was just Where No Man Has Gone Before. They were like, we'll just do the regular pilot. We're good.
One of the reasons this episode aired first was that it was done first, ahead of a bunch of episodes that filmed before it. And one of the reasons that was true was Mark Daniels.
Yeah, because Mark Daniels fucks.
There is a really interesting timeline online of like how behind production schedule they were when Daniels started this and how much time he made up during the production of this episode. And one of the main things that he did was something called the cast table, which is when you were done shooting your scene on the show, instead of sending you back to the trailer so you can fuck off and do whatever 60s, 70s thing you're doing, you would go to the cast table and you would read your scenes with anyone else who wasn't filming at that point to get ready for your next scene.
Be an actor.
And the producers loved this so much that like that just became what they do on the Star Trek set, even when Daniels wasn't directing. Like they just kept that part of it so that they could help churn out these episodes. Oh, a funny little prop note. McCoy's handheld medical scanners that you see him use, those are actually for real salt shakers. They're just like of a Scandinavian design, and so they don't show like salt shakers. Stell, you brought up earlier Uhura's kind of out of character line. Sometimes I think if I hear the word frequency again, I'll cry. That's actually a semi-inside joke because, again, we are like 4 episodes in by the time we're doing this. And Nichelle 6, yeah. And Nichelle Nichols said during one of the earlier filmings of that, if I have to say the word frequency one more time, I'll blow up this goddamn panel.
Good for her.
This is the only episode where we see McCoy's bedroom.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of weird statues and, of course, books.
Yeah, he has a lot of books.
Look, these Starship officers on the Enterprise are like, yeah, we could have every book on my Kindle, but I like the way the books feel in my hand.
Relatable.
We love them.
So yes, of course, I am going to get into some of the costume stuff. The head of the creature costume was first sculpted in clay and then covered in a plaster cast. Once the cast was removed, liquid latex was applied to create the flexible single piece. It was a single piece, which means it's fucking balmy under that thing. It was then painted, and Hua Cheng added the white wig and attached glass lenses to mask the eyes. The person who is actually inside of that was named Sandra Gimple. She kicks ass. I'll talk about her more in a second. But once she was inside the mask, the cuts were made into the wrinkles in order to offer the actress some limited vision while wearing it because the eyes just did not work at all. A pair of gloves were modified by Cheng to give the fingers the appearance of tentacles with suction cups, and then William Werthees, their regular costumer, went and put more costume on top of the suit, and that was just a slashed up like fur full body suit. So, jumping into some casting stuff, I'm going to start with Sandra Gimple, whose face you don't see in this episode, but she is the person inside the creature. She also plays a Telosian in The Cage. She got this because she was a dancer that got hired by a casting agency, and the casting agency thought that she would be good with movement and costumes because of her dance background. And then she goes on to have an amazing stunt performer career. She also has done work as a second unit director and AD, and is still working now. Her acting roles include The Stand, 6 Feet Under, Big Fat Liar, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Fuller House, but her stunt credits have like everything from Lost in Space and Bionic Woman to Escape from New York, The Goonies, Evil Dead 2, The Rock, Con Air, Planet Terror, The Amazing Spider-Man, and has a credited role in that Weird Al movie that's in post-production right now.
Oh, interesting.
That's so cool.
And this is me only like skimming her stunt credits, pulling out maybe 2 things from every decade she's worked in. She kicks ass. As the Pleasure Planet version of the monster that we see, that is Francine Pine. She had a short swing through Desilu Studios with roles on Pistols and Petticoats, It Takes a Thief, and Here's Lucy, but then just straight up pieced from acting. We love to hear it.
She does have like a I look like I work in a saloon in a Western movie vibe.
Oh, yeah. That's Vince Howard as Uhura's tempting crewman version of the monster. His career starts as a singer while in the army in World War II Germany. His group, the Rhythm Aces, were successful enough to record a few songs after the war. Then after his second group, the Rocketeers, split, he moves on into acting. He was on Mr. Nowak with Gene Ball, who I'll talk a little bit, stars in this episode. And then did everything else from The Monkees to The Time Tunnel. Yes, that's right, season 3. I will still talk about The Time Tunnel. Barnaby Jones, The Streets of San Francisco, Emergency, Rockford Files, 5 episodes of Murder, She Wrote. And most of these were him playing cop characters. So it was a very tall, prominent black man, just as a cop career actor. That is, once again, Michael Zaslow as Darnell. Congrats on the sex and congrats on getting notes in 2 episodes in a row on X-Rex. That is Bruce Watson as Green. He also voiced D'Artagnan in the 68 Three Musketeers cartoon, as well as on the Banana Splits Adventure Hour. He also voiced another character, Phineas Fogg, on Chattanooga Cats and Around the World in 79 Days. He also did Mission Impossible, Barnaby Jones, and Charlie's Angels. That'll bring us to the aforementioned Jean Ball, who plays Nancy Carter. She was born on May 3rd, 1928 in Chicago, Illinois.
Hey!
Other notable roles include returning character runs on the sitcom Love and Marriage, Bachelor Father, Magic Doctor. Not actually.
Bachelor Father.
Bachelor Father. The aforementioned Mr. Nowak and Perry Mason. And then that brings us to Alfred Ryder, who played Robert Crater. He did everything from radio to Broadway to directing during his career. His Broadway debut came in 1929 when the 13-year-old Ryder played a lost boy in a production of Peter Pan. His adult Broadway debut was in the 1939 production of Our Town. He was also Laurence Olivier's understudy on The Entertainer. Aside from Broadway, he has over 100 TV guest appearances and film roles like in True Grit, Escape from Witch Mountain, and Tracks. He retired in 1980 and just said, nope, I did it all already. I'm good. Bye.
I'm
Good
out.
for him.
Didn't he also I read some apocrypha thing that he like hurt his arm, like sprained his arm or something during filming, and then was like, don't worry about it, I can do it.
Yeah, it's very general, but from what I read, he suffered a severe arm injury, which prevented him from using the arm at all. So in
That's
all of
probably
his
why
scurrying
he had, like,
about
creep vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all of his scurrying about through those sets which are like literally cardboard boxes with weird plaster and rubber treatments on them, like bare bones for this episode.
It's a barren
but yeah,
planet.
apparently only using one arm. We'll move on to 3. This was written by Glenn Morgan and James Wong, but also Chris Reppenthal. Reppenthal's other X-Files writing cred is the season 1 closer, Roland. He's also done writing and production work on Quantum Leap, Lois and Clark, and Outer Limits. This was directed by David Nutter, because if it looks like the X-Files, it's directed by David Nutter. This episode looks like what I think an X-Files episode looks like when I think of an X-Files episode in my head. Just
Dark.
like heavy shadows. And then like when you see people in light, their skin tones are super muted. It looks like you're watching it through a CRTV, even if you're watching it through a modern flat screen. This episode, other than the things mentioned, actually doesn't have a lot of production stuff, oddly. However, I think because X-Files is a more modern show and also how TV was made then, they were just cranking it out, and I don't think anybody was really taking a lot of notes. So we'll jump to some casting stuff. We briefly see David Livingston as a guard. He only has 8 IMDb creds, but of course one has to be an episode of Supernatural where he plays Abraham fucking Lincoln.
Oh yeah, the Wax Museum episode, which Paris Hilton is in and is very good in.
Yeah, well, nice.
It's an excellent episode.
That's John Tierney as Dr. Jacobs. Also did a Millennium episode. Also The Sentinels, Stargate 8 and Stargate Atlantis, and Psych. That's Gustavo Moreno as the father. Oddly enough, he only has like a couple of other acting credits listed to his name, but
Are they all vampires?
no. One was like a biker guy, I think. But if Google and social media searching was actually being helpful, I think he's a photographer and not an actor. So
Interesting.
kind of got hired just on looks.
Yeah, he's got a
That's
look.
Brad Lorry as our very well-spoken fireman at the end. He also plays a security guard in Leonard Betts, also a suited man in the Millennium episode 7 and 1. He's predominantly a stunt actor and driver who's done a lot of work through Canada across like 3 decades now, so still working. That's Richard Yee as David Young. He played Donatello in the live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles The Next Mutation show. He was also Little Fat in X-Men The Last Stand, and apparently got eaten by a Gorgon in the supernatural episode Ouroboros.
Oh, yeah. That episode's great. But I don't know if it's actually great, but I like Greek mythology nonsense, so.
Sure.
No, I'm remembering it now. It actually is a very good episode.
Okay.
There are over 300 of them, you guys. It's very hard. They're all stupid.
And yet here we are still. Richard Hughes also in a really cool, definitely B horror movie called The Perfection. It's great. It's queer. It's disastrous. More people should watch it. I think it's still on like streaming stuff. That's Robert Alford as Garrett Laurie. He also plays the golfing man in a Millennium episode and is also a harbor master in the X-Files episode Nisei. He also played the president in an SG-1 episode and was in the Together TV movie.
Hey! Yeah!
That's Ken Kramer as Dr. Browning, who's also plays a doctor character in the Erlenmeyer Flask, also plays a doctor character in the War of Corporphages. He's an interesting guy. He founded the Globe Theater in Saskatchewan in the 60s with his wife and did a bunch of classical theater there. And then a bunch of Canadian TV guest spots and was recently Hank on Altered Carbon and Ivan in 16 Hudson. That's Frank Ferrucci as Detective Nettles. His credits include 85's Airwolf to more recently iZombie. He was a security guard demon in the supernatural episode 2 Minutes to Midnight, season 5, episode 21.
That episode is intense as shit.
Okay.
That's season 5 is like when they were supposed to end. And so season 5 is pretty intense.
And then they just went on 10 more seasons after that.
But then the network was like, CW was like, this is the only thing that makes money. It has to stay.
On a network that has never made a net profit since it's existed.
It has to stay. We cannot keep afloat without this. Kripke, let's go.
That's Malcolm Stewart as Commander Carver. We talked about him on the second episode of X-Trex ever for playing Dr. William Glass in the pilot episode of The X-Files.
Oh.
That's Tom Beath as Detective Gwyn. We also talked about him in an earlier episode for playing a scientist in space.
Oh.
Like
There
the
are
episode
so many
Space.
people in these like early episodes of the X-Files that they just like they're on so many episodes, they all meld together, and so every time I think someone looks familiar, I'm like, I must be wrong. He must just have a face that looks familiar, and then it's like, no, he's in 18 other episodes. Like, oh, okay, actually, that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
See, mine is they must be on Supernatural. It's right most of the time.
Our crispy prison boy, John, known as the Sun, is an actor who goes by the name Frank Military.
No.
The year after this, he plays Biddle Coleridge in the DS9 two-parter Past Tense, but he's primarily a producer and writer on shows like NCIS Los Angeles, Jericho, and The Unit.
Is John military on a bunch of bullshit military procedures? I never would have guessed.
I'm sorry, no, his character's name was John. He's Frank Military, god damn it.
My bad. Frank Military. That's better.
Frank Military.
As though his full name is Francis Military.
As our unholy spirit, that is Justina Vale. She also did guest roles on Seinfeld, played an ex-girlfriend in Jerry Maguire, some General Hospital as well, and then 66 episodes as Dr. Olga Vukovic in 7 Days, which was a Canadian sci-fi show. She's now a career and personal development coach and a hypnotherapist for professionals in the business and entertainment worlds.
That is funny.
And then, of course, yes, as Kristen, that is Perry Reeves. Before this, she had already done Child's Play 3 and some episodes of Homefront, and this same year she does Murder, She Wrote and Red Shoe Diaries. So it sounds like David got her more work in Red Shoe Diaries as well then, because he was still hosting that. Yeah, he was still hosting that at the time.
What's Red Shoe Diaries? Refresh my brain.
It's the Skinamax, like
Ah.
HBO adult. David Duchovny plays this guy with a dog who like
Yeah.
has a column that gets naughty letters in.
Yeah, okay.
David Duchovny lore. Okay, sure.
Yeah, this guy.
Perry was also in Sliders, several CSIs, The Lion's Den, Grey's Anatomy, and Castle as guest actors. And then she's in Entourage for 75 episodes as one of the main characters. One of the main characters' wives. She plays Mrs. Ari in the series and also in the movie. Then she's Caitlin Cook on Covert Affairs, Nina Devon for 20 episodes of Famous in Love, and most recently Natalie on Paradise City. Her parents were one of those we don't own TV families, so she just traveled a lot as a kid, but then went into TV. And then, yeah, her and David Duchovny did date from 93 to 95, but like, what's a 2-year relationship when you're young and acting? It's not serious. You're fine.
Yeah, but they work together a bunch. The worst thing you can ever possibly do for a relationship. Then it feels like you've been together for 50 years.
We live together, we see each other, we work together.
Anyways, clean that finger before you suck it. Bye-bye.
I don't want to bias your report, but I need a preliminary examination for anything unnatural.
All right, time for our
Disgusting.
overall thoughts. These are about
Vampires.
creatures who suck nutrients out of your body until you die.
Yeah, they're just different kinds of vampires, but they're both very much vampires.
Different kinds of vampires.
Starting off, X-Trek Season 3, strong to the theme.
Also, everybody was pretty sweaty in both these episodes.
Very hot, very sweaty,
Mhm.
lots going on, lots of heat
The
happening.
sweatiest vampires I've ever seen in my life. You know, normally it's like, we don't sweat. My skin is cold like marble.
Imagine becoming a vampire in the 90s and being stuck with the shittiest bangs of all time forever, for all eternity.
Oh, yeah.
You'd go to a vampire conference and everyone would be like, you turned in the 90s. We can all tell. And they're like, I can't do anything about
You'd have
this.
to, like, and you can't get like front extensions. That is so funny.
There's lots of creeping around in both of these episodes. Lots of creeping around on the ground, looking over shit.
I'm still stuck on the bangs. I love the idea of being like, you can't turn me into a vampire yet. You have to let me grow out my bangs. I cannot have bangs for eternity. Sorry. Yeah. Vampires. We nailed it. We're great.
We nailed it. We did a really good job.
Podcasting.
Great at podcasting.
Also, Bones is like weirdly mourning his lost love of Nancy. Mulder is mourning his lost potential love of Scully.
They're both having a lot of feelings and very uncomfortable talking about them. I do not need help. Do not fucking help me. And both of these episodes are very early in the series, and there's a lot of like foundational character stuff that's being built on for later, but is also still very like, what the fuck is happening here?
Yeah. Okay, fan questionnaire. As a fan, how would you say this episode holds up compared to others?
Not good.
Yeah.
It's not. Again, it's not a bad episode. It's just so early that it doesn't fit with what the series becomes. And so it stands out as a very unusual episode.
It's actually, I know all the time we joked in last season where I would be like, it's mid. And you'd be like, it's great. This is actually mid.
Yes,
This is
absolutely. Yeah, this is solid mid. How do you feel this holds up as an X-Files episode?
It's like split. Like the character stuff is great. The X-File actually sucks and makes no sense. And also knowing that it's like Morgan or Wong too, it's like a little disappointing. Like this is not a good episode for you guys. So it doesn't like.
At least they also think that.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they're like, yeah, this was a miss.
This is not a good one.
Don't watch this one.
I don't think I would ever be like excited to watch this on a rewatch. I'd be like, oh, we're at 3.
Yeah.
I'll just put it on while I'm like coloring.
The thing that's nice about it is when you have the like context of the relationship every episode in a row leading up to this one, you do get that feeling of like the emotional tie to Mulder missing Scully.
That's true. But as somebody who watched all of those episodes around this one without watching 3, you still get it without watching 3.
Yeah, definitely.
So
You
what
win
is-
some, you lose some.
yeah, you gotta break a few eggs. You know? What is the most Star Trek moment of the episode?
I don't know that I have a good answer because this is such an unusual episode. I honestly, I feel like Spock slapping her across the face several times.
That.
I feel like that fits into the rest of the series so well that like Spock is doing this demonstration of emotion for Bones, like not only
save Jim,
right, and not only is it like I'm gonna do this like outlandish thing to like get your attention in order to save our other husband, but also this like I can just dispassionately slap this like female presenting human quote unquote because I don't give a fuck. Like I feel like that feels very much like that's Star Trek. You want to point at some stuff that kept on through the rest of the series.
Yeah.
That's it.
I do love the relation because you just said the like word husband or whatever. Like we don't get a lot of Spock flirty or anything in this one, but you get like pre-relationship flirting between Kirk and McCoy that I really love.
Mm-hmm.
The most X-Files moment for me is the tie. The one where the doctor is like, you are bumming me out. I do not like what you're laying down. And then the shot of Mulder on a grassy hill looking sad while the world literally burns around him feels pretty on brand.
Yes. Personally,
or him going into the office and being like, it's been a couple months, gotta change my titty calendar. We did not talk about that. He walks into the office and it's like, oh, you can tell it's been a long time because somebody came in and threw plastic sheets over everything because fucking Mulder didn't do that. He can't even like change his own sheets on his bed, so he sleeps on the couch. Like he'd not do that, but he's got to make it nice and like, oh well, I left in July, but now it's November. Let me update my titty calendar.
The woman on a giant saw, like the weirdest titty calendar I've ever seen. Like he had to go to a hardware store to get like the light bulb for his house, the one light bulb he has in his house. And they were like, would you like this free titty calendar? And he was like, why not? I guess I need a calendar. Scully won't mind, I guess.
Oh, incredible. So I don't know. There was some clutch. It's not even like X-Files moment. It's just Mulder moment.
Well, yeah, Mulder is the X-Files.
Yeah,
exactly. And I feel like the one for me that I always remember about this is him in the club going, AIDS! Just the most Mulder shit of all time. Aren't you scared? Fuck off, dude. We're in a vampire club.
What did you think would happen here? Jeez.
Oh, fuck.
Are you shipping anybody in this episode?
No, not really. Like you said, there's like early Bones Jim stuff,
It's
but
called
like
McKirk.
I don't care. Sure, they're not McKirk at this point. It doesn't get the name. So there's early stuff of that, and obviously like Spock protecting Kirk. There's some of that, but like I didn't want anyone to kiss at any point. Bones and Nancy, I didn't even want to kiss. It was like, no, I'm not into this. Rand and Sulu, I don't know.
Sulu's too busy with his plans. He's got a lot going on.
Friendship thing. I'm happy with them as friends.
Yeah.
Were you shipping anyone in this episode?
Mulder and his feelings? I don't know. Yeah, no. Because even Mulder's sadness like doesn't read to me as like I lost a lover, because like they're still like they're still wrapped up in like the potentiality. It's like I lost the potential. I lost my friend.
Yeah. I
lost my partner.
I have no people in my life, and I left the only person in my life.
I have no one. Is it a fuck, fine, or a flop?
That's fine.
Yeah.
This is fine.
I would say this one's a fine minus.
Yeah.
The actual X-File and the plot. Because sometimes there are X-Files episodes where like the X-File or the B plot or whatever is trash, but it's still like fun or like you don't really need an explanation. This one sucks. And not like, haha, we're making a vampire joke. It like actually blows. It doesn't make sense. It's not good. None of the acting is particularly good.
David Duchovny's acting is good.
I'm talking about the like vampires and stuff.
Okay,
but
yes.
David Duchovny's acting is good. The firefighter A+, the doctor, great. But the like vampire storyline is
it's a mess.
It's a mess. And it is distracting from the important emotional arc that Mulder is on.
Yes, I would agree with that.
So I would say fine minus.
Fine minus.
Very
Ooh.
Close to a flop. It's been a while.
There's very few flops that we've had on the show. I've said before, too. I try to pick stuff that's not flops, but like sometimes stuff just fits the theme where it's like, you're going to get kind of a shitty episode. Sorry.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can do about this.
Well, that's it. We did it.
All right, we did it. You can find us on the internet. You can follow us at NYD Productions on Twitter and interact with the show using the hashtag XTrexPod. You can find me at NYD Urgency on Instagram.
You can find me on Twitter at Stella_Cheeks.
And you can find me on Twitter at Haberdasher9K.
You can also email us at xtrexpod@gmail.com with questions or comments. Okay, so there are like 2 fics that I'm thinking of where Bones gets turned into a vampire and then he has a tragic love affair with Kirk, and they are really long and involved, but they're also good, but they are really long. So if you want those, I got those links. Or if you just want fics where everybody sucks dicks, I got them.
There was the shot of Kristen in the restaurant with the dude that she picks up where the subtitles literally just said slurping noises. Unclear.
I watched that as a child. I watched that as a child. It was on television, broadcast TV.
Also, that restaurant was called like
Ra,
Raz, which is like the Egyptian sun god who also has like domain in the underworld. Like they were trying to do too much.
Yeah, there was a lot
The
going on.
sun and the whole no, too much.
Yeah, who owned that restaurant? Why were they there?
Why did they have so many jars of raspberry jam?
Why are there full pies just chilling in the fridge?
Why did they touch the jars of raspberry jam?
She needed it for her blood bread.
But she loves the sweet, thick taste of blood. No. Why does she need to sweeten it with jam? Sorry, Bobby.
Speaking of doing too much, if you want more special behind-the-scenes action like our script notes, outtakes, extra podcasts like unofficial channels, and access to our Discord, then check out our Patreon at patreon.com/NYD Productions, where you can get access to all of that and more for only
$1. That one didn't. That wasn't our best work.
I'm in COVID quarantine on the moon. Our voices aren't going to sync up. It's fine.
We're doing the best we can. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and to tell your friends. We find that this nerdy shit is better when it's shared.
We'll see you next episode for The Circus. In the meantime,
believe boldly.
Seek truth.
Ship proudly.
X-Trex is created and written by Stella Cheeks, Erin Cline, and Bobby Hoffman, and produced by Bobby Hoffman for NYD Productions. Our show theme is Alien Spy by Ionix, and our show art was made by Jonathan Curtis.